Joining us now, Don McVea, Director of the National Federation of Independent Small Business for Mississippi and Louisiana. Hey, Don, how's it going?
Hey, good afternoon. Going well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. So give us the update. Always got to start out with asking you how these small businesses are faring with respect to getting people to come to work.
Well, that's always the hard part. that one seems to not be going away. Although, I think the bright spot in that conversation is that the number of folks applying for jobs has continued to trend in the right direction. Anecdotally, we have small business owners, on the ground telling us they're getting more people actually apply for jobs, which is, a significant step in the right direction considering where they were, even 6 months ago. So that's a positive. Still challenging, though. Labor quality still struggles, and unfortunately, and I guess time will tell on how that continues to go.
Yeah. We've got elections, as you're well aware, here in the state of Mississippi coming up, and then we'll kick off a new legislative session with some new faces and some that are likely to be reelected to their present offices. What is your organization seeking as legislative priorities coming up next year?
Yeah, I think we've got to get through this election cycle. I think we're lucky in Mississippi to experience a very pro-small business legislature. We've had great leadership in the House under Speaker Gunn, and it appears that Representative White will be the next Speaker of the Mississippi House, and we know that he's been good to work with and is a friend of business, and so a great leader, and so that's very positive. Some of these open seats, I guess we'll see kind of what happens after the primary in a couple of weeks. We'll be releasing our annual voting record on these legislators in the next 2 weeks or so. We'll be getting that out. And again, we're fortunate in Mississippi to have so many pro-small business legislators there at the Capitol. So we're hoping that, we get on the other side of this. We've got a great group to work with and talk about things that we can be proactive about. One of the couple of the things that have got done in Mississippi in the past couple of years, the reduction of the individual income tax, continuing to push that rate further down, especially as the state continues to see huge surpluses, which is great. It gives it an opportunity to catch up on backlogged needs there in the state. So surpluses are good in that regard, not to grow government, but to take care of the needs. And then look at cutting taxes because, again, those surplus dollars are taxpayer dollars after all. So we'll continue to look at pushing that, whether it's a full elimination or just a continued reduction. I think that's the step in the right direction in a way that Mississippi can continue to be competitive.
Okay. What about on the inflation front? What are you hearing? We're seeing certainly on a national level data that is tracked by the various government agencies shows that inflation has moderated fairly significantly over the year, and the PPI is down as well as the CPI. Are your members and are they talking about seeing some relief there, or do they still feel the heat of inflation?
No, one of the bright spots of our survey was really good to see. The number of small business owners that are reporting having to raise their prices fell to the lowest level since May of 2021.
Wow.
So, I'm sorry, March of 2021. I apologize. So, about 2 years ago. So that was really a bright spot, I think, in this past month's survey of their, kind of optimism and where things stand. We haven't seen that number drop. It's still not great,
right.
but the fact that their small business owners are telling us they're not having to increase prices at the rate that they were to keep up with inflation is an indicator that it's trending down, and that's a positive thing.
What about interest rates, Dawn? The cost of borrowing up dramatically over the last year. businesses that are looking to expand or make investment in new plant and equipment, if they finance that, like a lot of businesses do, I mean, that's a significant increase in the cost of those activities. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think our members really are not, they're looking at, is this the right time to, increase their inventory or invest in equipment. And we're not seeing those numbers as high as, if they were higher, it would certainly be the indicator of a strong economy. So we're not seeing that, but we do see some planned investments or some planned, increase in inventory. But again, the numbers remain weak there. It's still a challenge, and when you're having to continue to raise compensation, we have a net 36% of owners reporting that they have raised compensation. So you still have that, and then you still have the inventory. I mean, the inflation piece. It makes it a challenge to really look and say, okay, how do I want to grow my business? So maybe if we can continue to see these inflationary numbers continue to trend down, maybe by the fourth quarter things will improve and you'll start to see an increase in things like equipment purchases and increases in inventory.
It's a huge
things like I just say, a great example of what Mississippi did. Was the passage of the full expensing bill this past session, so that if you do buy a piece of equipment at the state level, you can, go ahead and deduct that, which is a really great way to encourage investment.
Right. Unfortunately, we lost the full benefit, the full 100% expensing, as that's being phased out. That was part of the Trump tax cuts, and of course, there's no way to get that through the Democrat-controlled Senate to make those permanent and return to the 100% expensing rules. And, of course, the president
We're working hard on that in D.C. I'll tell you, we have with the Main Street Certainty Act is something that we have filed in D.C. We've got a lot of great support. I know Congressman Ezell and Congressman Guest have already signed on to be co-authors of the bill. And, things like that would go a long way because in 2025 it does completely roll off, and we need to get that in place before that gets here.
Yeah, it's huge. You know that. It's huge. Yeah. And I can tell you as a business owner, it was critical both from the perspective of our internal purchases, but because I sold equipment, that was a big thing, too, to the buyers. They took advantage of that, and that often would be a factor in just making business happen. So I don't think unfortunately, the president, the Democrats, the Congress don't consider that and how big of an impact that has just on overall economic activity. And it's something I'm watching when you're seeing the decline of capital investment. That's usually a pretty strong harbinger of a recession around the corner. I think the saving grace there is we've got very low unemployment. People are working. They got money to spend. That's probably the offset of all this.
Right. And we've been talking to our members about this for a while. We've got 91% of our members saying they support permanently extending these provisions that are expiring from the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And it's just because it's been such an important tool. You could see the impact to the economy that it had right away. And the fact that it could be rolling off may or not, that uncertainty just makes it harder for businesses to make those choices about, like you said, do I make this investment now or do I wait until a time when it seems like it makes more sense for my bottom line?
No doubt. What about the other topic that you and I talked about certainly during the pandemic? That's just supply chain constraints. What are you hearing there? That seems to have really been relieved quite a bit.
It has. That's been really, I don't know that it's completely negligible, but it's certainly not a widespread like it was. So you're not seeing the challenges as much in the supply chain piece. We still have owners reporting sometimes, depending on what kind of industry they're in. But really that's been much better. And so we're glad to see that. Of course, gas prices played a factor in that as well, and luckily those have come down and remained down, considering where they were last summer and the summer before that.
Yeah, seems like we've got a much stable environment than we did a short year and a half ago. So I guess that's good news there. But I'm certainly glad to hear you guys are working hard on making those cuts permanent, the immediate expense, and I think that's a critical deal. And always appreciate you coming on and giving us an update. Thanks a lot, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. We're coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio.